Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and welcome to another episode of For Honor Executions Graded, the series where I look at every hero's unique executions and give them all a grade so that we can get an understanding of just how good their executions are overall. We've gone through a lot of heroes so far, guys. We've gone through all the vanguards, we've gone through all the assassins, and now we're working our way through the heavies. And today, by popular request, we're taking a look at the Conqueror. I really love Conqueror. I can't wait to take a look at these executions, but before we get started, if you are new to this series and have never watched it before, take a look in the upper right hand corner of the screen and down in the description. You'll be led to a video called That's an Execution, in which you can see kind of how I do this, like what my rubric looks like. It goes into great detail on what I do to grade these heroes. But if you're already familiar somewhat with the series but need a quick refresher, here's what I do. I'm going to look through each of Conqueror's unique executions. I'm going to give each one a grade based on 4 criteria. How lethal is it? How deadly? How realistic is it? Is it something that you could actually do? How efficient is it? Is it something that's going to be quick and useful on the battlefield? Would it be a good idea to do this? And then just how cool is it? Does it meet Conqueror's personality? Is it something that fits Conqueror as a character, and is it fun to watch? And then after I get a grade for all of Conqueror's executions, I'm going to average them all up and get a total grade for Conqueror overall. Sound good? Awesome. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started on Conqueror's executions. First up is Rowdy Sentence. Okay, so for Rowdy Sentence, I give this a lethality of 4 because think about where Conqueror's kicking. The Conqueror has kicked the head downward, and the throat is what's meeting the side of the shield here. And it doesn't take much pressure to crush the windpipe, break the throat like that. So this person is going to die. Even if they don't die instantaneously, they're not coming back from that. They will be unable to breathe. They will eventually just expire. So this person is definitely dead. For realism, I gave it a 3. The only problem I have with this execution is when she brings the flail down and the ball catches the back, there's this brief moment where nothing happens, and then she yanks down. I don't think that would actually happen, because people are going to say, oh, well, you know, the ball would have spikes in it if you have certain sets. Even with spikes, the impact should knock them down, not just catch in their back. This isn't a hook. What should have happened is she should have hit the head, and that would have knocked them down. But regardless of that, for efficiency, I give it a 1. This execution takes way too long. I mean, look at that. She just laughed at him, like, just, ha ha, I got you. You don't do that. If you're in the middle of a battlefield and you're in the middle of a fight, you don't want to take time. You don't want to waste time with a slow knockdown, putting your shield down, then kicking them down, and then stopping to ha ha, and then pulling it. You don't want to do that. That's not a good thing. So efficiency is a 1 for this one. I'm not a fan of the way that she handled that. For cool factor, I gave it a 3. I like this one. It's cool, and it fits Conqueror's whole personality. I think my issue with it was it just took too long, and that kind of killed it for me. I feel like if this was done faster, like if this was a faster execution where she didn't stop to laugh, or maybe when she knocked him down onto the shield, instead of using her foot, she used her flail to break his head or something like that, then I would have liked this a lot better. But for what it is, it's a 3, which gives this execution, Rowdy Sentence, an 11 out of 16, which is a 69%. Next up is Feros Ferio. Ooh, all right, I love this one. So lethality, that's a 4. If you look at the way she builds up that centrifugal force of the spinning flail and striking it down on the head, that's more than enough to crack the skull open, cause internal contusions. This person is done, especially when you add on top of that the shield strike that he just suffered. This person's dead. So that's 4 out of 4 for lethality. For realism, it's also 4. The funny thing is, my brother was pointing out to me, you would need a whole lot of skill to pull off this attack with a flail. But we have to assume that the Conqueror is skilled. We have to assume that the Conqueror has gone through necessary training with the flail to be able to do this. So I give it a 4 out of 4 for realism, because actually you could do this. You would just need a lot of skill, and the Conqueror would have that skill. So absolutely 4 out of 4 for realism. For efficiency, I also give it a 4. While you might think, oh, well, what about the wind-up? I actually don't mind that. In order for a flail to be effective, you need a bit of a wind-up. The flail is not like a sword or an axe where you just swing and get the job done. A flail sometimes needs that spinning motion first to get the momentum it needs to be dangerous. So I'm actually 100% okay with this. So 4 out of 4 for that. And cool factor, 4 out of 4 again. I love this execution. This feels exactly like what I want from a Conqueror. Just that spinning monster, super fast, super super effective, just absolutely devastating attack style. This is exactly what I wanted from Conqueror. This is easily my favorite of Conqueror's executions. 16 out of 16. That is a 100%. Love this execution. This is a great one. Next up is Head in the Clouds. All right, so Head in the Clouds. Well, obviously for lethality, it's a 4 out of 4. The head has been pulverized, but that's also a problem. So despite lethality being 4 out of 4, I'm going to have to give realism a 2 out of 4. Honestly, here's the thing. The head disappearing is a problem, but you didn't need to make the head disappear. If you hit someone in the face with that kind of power and that momentum, you're breaking the head, you're crushing the skull, you're destroying the face. Like, this person would die anyway. You don't need to destroy the head. I feel like destroying the head was, unnecessary. Now, some people have come to me saying, Raven, maybe it's just a matter of, like graphical quality or like interface, like they just can't keep the head in place. And I'm like, I don't really buy that. I feel like you could still break the head and it would be okay. Oh, and also in response to people saying, why don't you just do the mode where it doesn't take off the head or doesn't dismember? The problem with that is there are some attacks that I've seen done that could take off the head or could dismember. I don't want to take away from those. So I'm trying to be consistent here. That's my whole point there. But for this is a 2 out of 4. I only give it a 2 because technically you could still break the skull with this attack. You didn't need to destroy the head. For efficiency, I give it a 3. Knocking the opponent down and then striking to the back wasn't entirely necessary. You could have just struck the head or struck the back down and then hit them again with the shield. Like, imagine using the shield to hit them in the back and then using the shield again to hit the head. I think that would have been just as fine. I think that actually would have been much more quick. So that's a 3 for efficiency. And then for cool factor, I give it a 3. It's okay. It's fine. My big problem is it's just another upward swing, and which isn't a bad thing, but I feel like you could have had something more creative here. Because I consider Conqueror a creative hero. So anyway, that gives this execution a 12 out of 16, which is a 75%. Next up is Spine Twister. All right, so for lethality, that's a 4 out of 4. The strike to the head here, that's enough force to the jaw to not only break it, but you'd probably be causing a concussion at the very least, and you'd probably crack the skull, especially with that spinning and centrifugal force. The flail can deliver an absolute knockout punch if done in the right way, and that's the way you do it. For realism, that's a 4. You could pull this off. In fact, even that sling, the way they're thrown like that, notice that off the bat, they're kind of on their knee, they're off balance. Yeah, you could pull that off. So for efficiency, though, I do have to give it a 3. The wind-up does take a little bit of time, especially considering that we had to start with a little shield bop to get them started. You didn't need to do that. That wasn't entirely essential for the attack. But otherwise, I mean, it's okay, so I'll give it a 3 there. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 3. I don't know. This one isn't screaming it for me. It's cool. It's definitely cool. It just wasn't screaming it for me. It wasn't as big as I was expecting it to be. It's still good, though, which gives it a 14 out of 16, which is an 88%. So I do like it. Just something about it's not quite there. I was expecting something maybe a little bit more brutal. Maybe that's it. Still, the way she fights, it's brutal on its own, isn't it? Next up is Pugilism. Ooh, okay. Pugilism, lethality, 4 out of 4. Strike to the shield, punch to the face, and then slam down. Definitely like that. Definitely like that. That is awesome to me. I love that slam down. That's perfect. All right, for realism, this is also a 4. 4 out of 4 for realism. You could pull that off. That is something you could totally do, especially if they're off balance the way they are after this punch. They're off balance, and then wham. Strike them to the ground. That strike across the head, that's deadly. For efficiency, I thought about giving it a 3, but then I realized something. The reason I would give it a 3 is because Conqueror didn't need to do that punch, but then I realized Conqueror punched them to give distance. One of the problems with the flail is you need a certain degree of distance. And so Conqueror punched them to make them back off so that she could get that distance. It wasn't just a, I'm going to punch you for the sake of it. She did it to make them back off a bit so that she would have that room to maneuver. So that's a 4 for 4 out of efficiency. And then for cool factor, I love it. I love the kind of badassness of, no, you can't hit me. I'm going to hit you. Get on your face. You know, I actually really find that moment where he punches at her. No. I love that. It's so great. So that's a 4 for 4 there, which gives us another 16 out of 16, which is a 100%. I love this execution. Next up is Spiked Punch. Well, for lethality, that's a 4 out of 4. You are taking a heavy weight and slamming it over and over again into their face. This is going to kill. This is going to break the face, shatter the jaw. This person's dead. You'll get skull splinters in your own brain, to be perfectly honest. This person is done. For realism, yes, you could 100% do this. Lark did point out that the way that she flips the ball into her hand is a little wonky, but still, I don't think it was that bad. It kind of remind me of what old police officers used to do with like nightsticks, so it's not that big a deal to me. So I get that a 4 out of 4 for realism. For efficiency, though, I did give it a 3. I think my one problem with it here is you didn't need to do the punching action so frequently when there were other things you could have done, but, you know, still, it's quick enough. I think it's fine. I'll give it some credit that she's inadvertently using the shield as a protection mechanism, so I'll give her that. For cool factor, though, 4 out of 4. There is nothing more cathartic than after a guy, you know, has been ganking you or emote spamming on you or something like that has been really annoying, you just come up and beat the hell out of them. I love it. That's peak Conqueror right there. Just, no, you know what? You mother effing bit. Like, just, I love that. I love that. So that is a 15 out of 16, which is a 94%. I like this one. This one's really good. Next up is Get Off. Well, for lethality, it's a 4 out of 4. I mean, the head came off. But for realism, that's a 1. Okay, here's the thing. People are going to argue, well, come on, Raven. If there were spikes on that thing, it would get stuck in the head. They would not get stuck that deep that you'd be able to yank them around like this and rip the head off. That's not how that works. That's a 1 for realism. That would not happen. For efficiency, I also give it a 2. Much like the Warlord's like a stuck pig execution, there seems like it to be an easy solution to this. Use your shield to beat them off. You don't need to keep yanking on the flail to get them off when you could just use the shield to beat them, and then that would knock them off. So I feel like the correct reaction was not done here. It took too long to yank that off, and the reaction was dumb. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 2. I'm not a big fan of this one. I'm just not a big fan of the idea that this flail gets stuck in the dude's head, and now the Conqueror's struggling to get it out. Even if the flail had spikes on it, which some sets do, people always keep telling me, you need to use the default set. No, I'm considering all that. Even if the flail had spikes in it, it would not get stuck that deep. It kind of annoys me. This one's a little bit annoying to me. So that gives this one a 9 out of 16, which is a 56%. Sorry, this one's not there. Next is Mongrels Charge. All right, little awkward this one. For lethality, I'm gonna give it a 3, and I'll show you why. This strike and that strike are fine. That strike to the chin, I can't say that would kill. I mean, it would definitely hurt, there's no question. But the strength behind it, there doesn't look to be a whole lot of strength or power behind that swing. It feels almost more like what would happen if you got a hook punch. Like, I would think that if you hit them with full power, we'd see them fly or get thrown over like we've seen before. But this one, it's kind of weird. When we looked at the other Conqueror executions, when the flail really hit the face, we saw the Warden fly. So that showed some real power in the swing. In this one, Warden's head just kind of gets jerked, which is okay, but that doesn't show a lot of killing power. I think what might happen is the neck might break. I think that's what they're trying to go for. But I don't know. I can't say for sure, and that's why it gets a 3 for lethality. For realism, though, this is a 4. You could do this. This is totally fine. Actually, this is one of my favorites, which goes into efficiency and cool factor. Efficiency is a 4 for me because this was really quick. They took full advantage of shield and flail to pull off this attack, which I really, really like. A jab with the flail, uppercut with the shield, strike with the flail again, and then charge down with the shield. Love it. That's excellently done. And then for cool factor, I love it again because not only are you taking full advantage of all the weapons you have, but you're being very fast with it and very meticulous. You're not wasting time with, haha, you suck, haha, I'm gonna hit. No, I'm gonna take you out and move on. This is what I would see like in a real battlefield scenario for a Conqueror. This is how I'd want them to use their shield and flail. This looks very, very good. So I gave this one a 15 out of 16 again, which is a 94%. This one is really good. The only problem I had was I can't say for 100% certainty that the flail strike there would kill, because none of these others would necessarily kill. Maybe if you combined all of them, they might maybe kill, but might is not the same as assured. And I only give 4s to this person is absolutely dead. Next is modified Hangman. Okay, well, the head came off, so that's a 4 for lethality. For realism, it's a 1. All right, so there are several problems with how this works. First of all, the wrapping of the chain around the neck to create a hangman. The chain is not long enough to wrap around and get stuck effectively. Like, I don't know why the warden doesn't just roll over and let the chain slide off, because that's the thing. What needs to happen for this to work is the ball needs to wrap around the neck and then latch itself onto the chain. But as you can see, it doesn't. The chain isn't long enough to do that. The chain is not long or thick enough to wrap fully around the neck and allow enough leverage for the ball to hook onto something for it to stay stuck like that. It just would not work that way. It could not work that way. So already the hangman part of this would not work. Anytime that Conqueror does this, expect me to get upset because that chain is not long enough to pull off that maneuver. Secondly, it would not, even if the chain was long enough, it would not take off the head. It just would not. What would happen here is you would probably choke them or strangle them out. You would not take off the head. That's the problem. So this is a 1 for realism. For efficiency, I also don't like it. It's a 1 again because you have locked down your weapon to perform this execution. You basically made it so that your weapon is now useless as it's wrapped around this person, and the only thing you have at your disposal is your shield to defend yourself. I don't like that. I do not like that at all. That's a 1 for efficiency. For cool factor, though, I did give it a 3 because, granted, while I may not like the execution itself, the manner in which it's done does fit Conqueror very well. There's something satisfying about it that I admit to, so I will give this one a 9 out of 16, which is a 56%. Just know that anytime you see Conqueror do this sort of wrap her chain around the opponent's neck, know that that's going to be a problem. That the chain is not long enough to do that. The ball is not equipped in a way in which to hook onto something to lock it in place. Because that's the thing. Think about it. If you take a chain and wrap it around your own arm, and then you try to pull on one end of the chain, it will just unravel. It'll just unravel itself, unless the other end of the chain is hooked onto itself or hooked onto something to lock it in place. Here, there's not enough leverage for it, and the ball would not necessarily get hooked on anything. That's just not happening, so I'm not happy with this one. Next up is Dislocator. Wow. Okay. So first of all, for lethality, the arm did come off, but believe it or not, arms can come off and you can still live through it. If this guy gets someone to pull him off the battlefield and immediately stop the bleeding, he could survive this. So this gets a 3 for lethality. And I know you're thinking, oh, what are the likelihoods of that if it's a battlefield scenario? More likely than you'd think. More likely than you think. If the Conqueror moves on and someone gets to this warden quick enough, they could potentially save his life. Because the death here does not come from blunt force trauma, it comes from blood loss. And blood loss executions like this, you can prevent the death if someone gets to them quick enough. Because there's nothing else here to cause death besides the loss of that arm, and if you can get someone to him quick enough, you might be able to save him. Now, am I saying it's likely? No. Likelihood is he'll die, but because there's a chance, I gotta give it a 3. Now let's move on to realism, which is even worse. This is a 1. This is actually even worse than the neck one, because I know what they're trying to go for here. Oh, but the ball got stuck in the arm if it had spikes on it. Yeah, there's a lot of ifs in this equation. First of all, even if the ball did have spikes on it, it would not have enough bite in the flesh to hold it in place so that you could rip an arm off. What's actually going to happen is when you start pulling like this, the ball is just going to come loose and yank some of the flesh with it. It's not going to take the whole dang arm off. And even if you did get it caught in the arm like that, it would not cause an arm lock like this position. Arm locks like that are tricky enough to pull off. You would not be able to pull it off with just a chain and a ball loosely stuck in their arm. This one is really, really bad. So that's another 1 for realism. For efficiency, I will give it this. I guess you could argue that it's pretty quick. I guess you could argue that the shield is in a position for defense. Fine, I'll give it a 3. I'll give it a 3 because it is quick. It is done very fast, and there's not as much of a drag like was done in the last one with modified Hangman. But still, I don't like that. And then for cool factor, as Lark pointed out, again, it is pretty cool to see an arm removal from a character that you would not expect it from. And I admit, it is brutal. It very much fits in line with what I would expect from a Conqueror. A Conqueror would totally want to rip off your arm and make you suffer. You know, they're kind of sadistic like that. They're Warmonger light, only without the idealism, you know? Conqueror is just Warmonger without the idealism when you think about it. So I can see that, so I gave it a 3 for cool factor. But because of how bad the arm removal is, I can't give it a 4. So that gives this one a 10 out of 16, which is a 63%. Next is the wind-up. Okay. The wind-up. For lethality, I gave it a 4. If you hit someone directly in the face like this, odds are very, very good that their head is now broken, their skull is cracked and concaved, probably done some brain damage. This person's dead. This person is going to die. For realism, this is a 3. You could do this. The only problem I see is in the trip. When she swings that chain around the ankle to trip them up, I don't see that as being able to so easily knock them over. You technically could, but I don't see it as being that easy, so I gave it a 3. For efficiency, I also gave it a 3. I don't like how slow the wind-up is, but I give it some points because, frankly, again, it's a wind-up weapon. The flail is a wind-up weapon. You need to get that centrifugal force going. You need to get some momentum, so I can't be too mad at it. But it is a little slow, so I gave it a 3. And then for the cool factor, I gave it a 2. I'm not as big a fan of this one. It is essentially just a downward strike with the flail, which is fine. It fits. I mean, I could see you doing something like this, but it just doesn't fit for that brutality that I expected from Conqueror. That's all there is to that. So that gives this one a 12 out of 16, which is a 75%. Next up is low blow. Ouch. Okay. Low blow. I'm going to give that a lethality score of 3, and I'll tell you why. Many people were telling me in my Shugoki video that if you hit the nuts hard enough, you can kill someone. I didn't know this, so I researched it. It turns out this isn't quite accurate. If you hit the groin hard enough that you cause internal puncture damage, like you actually shove the groin matter into a other part of the body, you could potentially kill that way, but just the trauma of being hit in the nuts, no, that's not necessarily deadly. It's very rare to be killed in such a way. So I can't say that blow is deadly, and then the strike to the head, again, doesn't look powerful enough to necessarily kill. Could it? Sure, it could, but I can't say for certain. The other option is it only broke the jaw, which is possible. And of course, some people might say, but we see blood. Never trust the blood. Never trust blood on these things because Feron will just throw blood on everything, okay? That's what they do. Anyway, so for realism, that's a 4. You could do this. I actually like the idea that she used the flail to bring them to the ground by hitting them in the nuts, and then quickly follows up with a strike to the face. That was good. So that gets a 4 for realism and a 4 for efficiency, I would say. A 4 for efficiency because of how effectively Conqueror used that momentum. Strike in, pull out, use that force to come back and hit the face. That was very smart. And then for cool factor, again, I gotta give it a 4. It's satisfying. This feels like a Conqueror being a brutal piece of crap, especially if you do this with female Conqueror. I feel like female Conqueror has to be the one to do this, just to go like, all right, hit to the nuts, and then just do a Squidward scream, and then come around and bah. So, yep, I'm down with that one. So that gives this one a 15 out of 16, which is a 94%. Another really good one. Next up is Eat Dirt. All right, so for this lethality, I'm going to give it a 2. First of all, if we buy all this wholesale, then what happened was the flail went into the back and probably damaged the spine, but that doesn't necessarily mean it kills. Now, I've had people ask me in the past, Raven, when you do lethality, why don't you consider the reality that even if the person isn't dead, they may be immobile or unable to get up again, like they may be paralyzed or immobilized or something like that? Why don't you count that? Because lethality deals with death. And since these are called executions, and executions are about killing the opponent, I have to consider the reality that this is lethal or not. Like, is this going to kill or not? This is not the most disabling execution. This is the most deadly execution. So I'm sorry this gets a 2, because I can't say for certain that this would kill. Likely it would paralyze or do some damage to the spine. I can't say for certain that this would kill. And then for realism, I could give it a 3. I don't think it would be that easy to knock them on the back, and I also don't like the fact that the flail gets stuck in the back like that. Again, people give too much credit to the spikes on a flail's ball. I don't think that it would go that deep into the back, and I don't think it would get that easily stuck. I just don't see that happening, so that's a 3. And then for efficiency, I gave it a 4. It is quick. I'll give it that. It is a very quick execution and done pretty well. I think one of my biggest problems with it, and that goes into my cool factor, I give it a 2 for cool, is, first of all, look at the way the Warden's standing. Look at what Warden does. Just, I guess I'll stand here. I don't know why they're standing there like, what's going to happen next? Move, Warden! You know, that kind of thing. And then I also am not a big fan of it because it just looks kind of sloppy. This wide swing to the legs, and then a downward strike to the back, and then, it's stuck, and then pulls it out. That doesn't do it for me. It feels wonky. It feels weird. You know what? Remove the flail and give her an axe. This would feel more like what that would happen. See, imagine that as an axe. Doesn't that feel more accurate now? It feels more like Conqueror was pretending she had an axe in this moment. So that doesn't work as well for me. So that gives this one an 11 out of 16, which is a 69%. Next up is Garrot. This is one of the default executions. It gets a 4 out of 4 for lethality because what they're clearly going for is the breaking of the neck. And you can hear it too. Yeah, you hear the neck straight up break. And if you broke the neck like that, with the ball underneath the throat so that there's no air coming in, this person is dead. So that is a 4 for 4 for lethality. But for realism, it's a 1. And again, it goes back to that wrapping of the chain around the head thing. You could not pull this off. In order for this to work, the ball has to get stuck on something so that it stays in place and does not just come loose and unravel the chain. And here there's nothing that it could possibly get stuck on. The chain isn't long enough. The chain is not long enough to do that. There's nothing it could get stuck on. All Warden has to do now is lift his head enough that the ball comes loose, and so when she yanks, it just comes unraveled. I don't see this happening. That's a 1. For efficiency, I give it a 3. It's quick. And I also like the fact that Conqueror uses the Warden's body to protect their back. So I'll give it that. It is quick, but I think it could have been done a lot better if they just, hit him with the flail instead of garroting him. But I will give it a 2 for cool factor, only a cool, because while I don't like this execution, again, I like the creativity. I like the fact that they're finding new ways to use the flail. And if the chain were longer, I would actually buy this a bit more. Make the chain longer, make it so that the ball noticeably hooks onto the chain, or maybe another thing you could do is have Conqueror come up behind them, grab the ball, and then grab the stick and then choke them out from behind like a garrote wire, I'd be cool with that. That'd be fine. That'd be okay. But here, no, I'm sorry. The most that's going to happen here is you're going to choke them. That's what's going to happen. So, sorry, not a fan of this one. That gives us a 10 out of 16, which is a 63%. Next up is the Pop Top. No. All right, well, for lethality, the head came off, so that's a 4. But for realism, that's a 1. I do not like this. The head should not come off. And you know what makes this even more sad? You can still kill with this hit. If it hits up under the chin or into the face and you knock upward, this should still kill. You don't need to remove the head. But for that, it gets a realism of 1. It could not do this. That's bad. For efficiency, it's a 4. It's quick enough. It's done fast enough. You knock the opponent down and then do the strike, which is what you'd want to do. I'll also give it some credit that notice how the shield moves after she hits. She brings the shield around so that it blocks the flail from hitting her own leg. Look at this. She made sure that the flail didn't hit herself by moving the shield, which is why I feel like if you're going to use a flail, you need to have a shield companion with you. But for cool factor, I give it a 2. I'm sick of these decapitations, and worse yet, you're using a weapon that should not decapitate that easy. So, it's a 2. That gives this one an 11 out of 16, which is 69%. Sorry. Next is Qui Ferit Non Errat. The famous soccer kick. All right. For lethality, the head came off, so that's a 4. For realism, it's a 0. Yeah, I'm doing this now. I'm giving 0s to ones that could not ever happen in not even in my wildest dreams could I see this. Where do we even break down how wrong this execution is? So let's start from the top. We start by wrapping the chain around the head again. No. In fact, how does that even work? Look, they're not even pretending like the ball gets hooked on anything. It looks like the chain is just draped over their neck. The ball doesn't get hooked on anything. Look. See? There's nothing for it to hook onto, so you shouldn't even have the leverage or hold to throw them. You then do a shoulder throw after you hook their head with nothing. Shoulder throw them. They hit the ground, and then you kick their head off. You kick the head is not glued to the neck using Gorilla Glue. This is not Scotch tape that holds your neck together, okay? It is not that easy to knock off the head. That's so bad. And then for efficiency, it's a 1. It's a 1 for efficiency. You know, you could have killed them by swinging that and then hitting them in the head and taking them out. Or you could have brought the shield down on top of their head. Or you could have, after you shoulder through them, let's say that we hit that, wrapped around, shoulder through them, and then slam down with the shield or down with the flail right there when they hit the ground. Would have been okay. I would have given it more points for efficiency. But with this, it's like, no, we're going to throw you, and then instead of using our weapon, we're just going to kick you. Now, you might be wondering, hey, Raven, what if they just kicked the head, but the head didn't come off? I'd actually be okay with that, because it might not kill necessarily, but it would have a high likelihood to. It would definitely cause a concussion, if nothing else. It would definitely cause a concussion. It would probably break the skull. Like, genuinely, you could have done that and I would have been okay, but no, the head had to fly off. And some people will say, well, just remove the dismemberment. Listen. You hear that soccer whistle? They clearly wanted the head to come off. They wanted the head to go flying because they want to treat it like it's a soccer ball. Come on! You know better. For cool factor, though, 4. I know that I just railed on this execution and hated on it so hard, but I love it. It's hilarious. It's so stupid. After spending time with it and really watching it, I'm like, this is one of the dumbest executions I've ever seen, but I love it. The fact that you can just take this warrior with a flail and have them become a soccer player, even adding the whistle, even adding that stupid whistle, that just made it even funnier to me. So that's a 4 for cool factor, which gives us execution a 9 out of 16, which is a 56%. Sorry, it's cool, it's funny, but there's so much about it that just cannot work. And finally, we have Gut Punch Neckbreaker. And the head came off again. All right, 4 out of 4 for lethality. The head came off. Realistically, this is a 1. It's a 1. You could not take the head off that easily. Oh, and someone's going to say, but the shield is bladed. Actually, if you want to look at the default shield, it's not. So you can't even pull that with me. Besides, it just could not take the head off that easily. No. Just no. Just no. For efficiency, it's a 1. Not only do you put away your weapon to do this, you use your shield to do it, and you took way too long to pull it off. You should have knocked his head. If you're going to take his head off with the shield, you should have done it there. You shouldn't have given him the chance to plea for mercy. You should have just finished him off. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 3. It does definitely feel like something Conqueror would do. It feels like it fits. It's just, with all the other options at your disposal, that's what you came up with? Really? Not a fan. All right, well, that gives this one a 9 out of 16, which is another 56%. Hate to say it, because I know a lot of people like these executions, but they're just not that great when you really look at them. All right, guys. We're done. We have gone through all 17 executions of the Conqueror, all of his unique executions. After grading all of them, looking over all the grades, averaging them up, we come to a final score of, wait for it, wait for it, waiting for it, a 75%. This was actually better than I was expecting. Now, a lot of people have come to me saying, Raven, why do you hate the flail so much? Why do you dislike it? I do not hate the flail. I want to make that clear. I think the flail is a very cool, unique weapon, but I think it comes with its own degree of weaknesses. I give Conqueror a lot of credit, because one thing that I was really surprised about when looking over Conqueror's executions is that so many of them were absolutely lethal. Conqueror really took advantage of the flail and how deadly it could be. Most of their lethality scores were very high marks. In fact, there wasn't even one that dropped below a 2. Only one even got to 2, so they were very lethal, and even some of their realism scores were better than I expected, and their efficiency wasn't too terrible, their cool factor wasn't too terrible. All of it was pretty good. The problem is some of what they do just really hurt their score. Like, for example, some of their realism scores, while they were good, they also had a lot of 1s. I think they had a total of 6 or 7 1s overall in terms of realism. And I think a lot of that has to do with they keep playing with the flail like it could be a garrote wire or a choking weapon. They also overestimate some of the hitting power that it has. There are some aspects to it that I think hurt Conqueror in the long run. And a part of that's because the flail, while a really cool weapon, suffers from a few limitations. And I know there's some people who swear by the flail. No, it's totally... Look, I have tried making my own makeshift flail. I've tried seeing what it can do. I like what it can do. It's a cool weapon. But the way Conqueror uses it, I'm afraid, is a little lacking in terms of what we're going to really need. There were also some executions where, frankly, Conqueror just does some things that take too much time. The efficiency scores took a hit in a few spots because Conqueror is taking his time to get a lot done. Does that mean that I dislike the Conqueror? Absolutely not. Love Conq. I love what Conq is capable of. I really love seeing what they can do. These executions, if they weren't making me groan with how unrealistic they were, they still made me laugh at some points with how awesome they were. So a lot of these executions, I felt like if they failed in one area, they did really well in another area. So I can't really hate on Conqueror too much in this series. But what do you guys think? Do you think that Conqueror did a good job here? Do you think that the score that I gave reflects well on Conqueror? What do you think about all this? Did you enjoy it? Let me know down in the comments below, and we'll release a poll soon to decide which heavy is next to take a look at. And until that time, I will see you in my next video. Take care.